Hello, fellas. A very warm good evening and welcome back to our training sessions on IELTS, right? So today we are actually going to be talking about identifying information. Now, identifying information is a component of the reading module that kind of comes up in both general reading as well as in academic reading. So today's agenda is basically about, first of all, discussing some lecture material on the topic of identifying information. Then we will look at some sample question papers. We'll try to figure out what sorts of questions these are, how do you understand them, how do you interpret them. We'll obviously be solving them, and after doing a sample activity on identifying information, which you can also call writers views or claims, then we'll be coming down to the rest of the things such as words, spellings, and idioms. So without further ado, let us get kick-started with today's session. So basically, that being said and done, what is our understanding of writers' views or claims, also known as identifying information? Well, it can be a very daunting task at times. In my experience of having attempted this exam as well as having checked students' results in the field of consultancy and teaching, I've normally seen that people are overwhelmed the most, especially in MCQs as well as in writers' views or claims. So first of all, we're going to basically understand what this extract is all about, what this topic is all about before we go on to solve the rest of the questions. So identifying information, also known as writers' views or claims. So very first question, what are the different types of writers' views or claims? Now, writers' views or claims are subdivided into two different categories mentioned below. You have type 1. These questions are basically called true, false, not given. These instructions will always be given to you. These instructions will always be given to you in the question, so they'll be telling you what type it is. But the purpose of this is to just educate you about the different components of this type of reading activity. So type 1 is true, false, not given, whereas the type 2 questions that you get in writers' views or claims, also known as identifying information, is yes, no, not given. In both cases, no matter which type it is, how do we go about solving these questions? Well, first of all, we will always look at the question statement. After that, we will read through the passage and then decide whether or not the information is in the passage. All right, we'll look at the question, examine that statement properly in depth. Then we will go through an entire reading passage, understand it, and then figure out whether or not we can obtain that information from the passage. So a very important question over here is going to be, what is the difference between true, false, not given, and yes, no, not given questions? In other words, what is the basic fundamental difference between the type 1 as well as the type 2 questions? So in this case, type 1 questions, they are basically factual questions, questions that are based more on the objectivity of the matter, okay? They are regarding hardcore facts, and there are questions that do not contain opinions or preferences. All right. So type 1 questions, they're all about core hardcore facts, no opinions or preferences. If the instructions say to you, write true, false, or not given in the answer sheet. So obviously from that, you can identify that it is a type 1 question. Now, what does true actually mean? True means now you've gone through the passage and then you look at the question statement. If what is mentioned in the question statement actually agrees or is verified or accepted or proved by the information in the passage, then the answer will be true. In case the information in the question statement contradicts or is rejected by the information in the passage, then in that case, the answer will be false. Thirdly, not given. Now, let's say you have gone through the reading passage in depth, and then you're looking at the question statement. Now, you do not have enough evidence to ascertain whether this question statement contradicts or is being verified by the information in the passage. So when you have insufficient information and you're lapsed as to what the answer is going to be, you will say that in that case, the answer will be not given. Not given basically implies that there is no information regarding this question statement in the passage. Type 2 questions, yes, no, not given. Now, in type 1, I said that it was all factual questions with no opinions or preferences. So you just flip the scenario for type 2. It's vice versa. You just reciprocate it. Okay. So type 2 questions are actually called writer's opinions. There is no factual element in these sort of questions. They're all about opinions, preferences, what the writer thinks, what the writer wants to tell us. Therefore, since these are basically since they basically concern writers' opinions, we can also say that the type 2 questions are often called reading between the lines, right? Trying to figure out the clues that the writer is trying to bombard us with in the passage. Now, you have gone through the claims of the writer, that is the information in the reading passage, and then you observe the question statement. So if that question statement is agreeing or it's being accepted or proved or verified by the claims of the writer in the passage, then in that case the answer is yes. If the question statement is contradicting or is being rejected by the claims of the writer in the passage, then obviously the answer will be no. Not given. Not given means we do not have enough evidence to ascertain as to whether the question statement is agreeing with the claims of the writer or whether it is contradicting the claims of the writer. We would generally like a little bit more evidence in the equation. So since we have insufficient evidence, from there we can actually ascertain that it is impossible to say what the writer thinks about this, as there is no information regarding this question statement in the passage. तो वहां से हम क्या deduce करते हैं that the answer will be not given because we simply do not have enough evidence to play with. All right, so these are basically, this is a summary, you can say, of the two question types. So that being said and done, moving on to the note, there is a common strategy or technique when it comes to dealing with both type 1 and type 2 questions. So as you see over here, the same thing that I said, no matter which question type it is, first you look at the question statement, that is like your basic blueprint, that is the drill. You look at the question statement, then you read through the passage in depth, and then you decide if the information is in the passage, okay? That being said and done, next up you have, I've given some examples, and now what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna comb through those examples and figure out what the answer is gonna be. So in the case of these 4 examples, let us assume that they are all type 1 questions, in which means in these cases, the answer can explore one of the 3 possibilities. It can either be true, or it can be false, or it can be not given, okay? So first of all, if you look at the reading passage, the majority of the people who graduated university found it difficult to get a job. I repeat, the information in the reading passage says, the majority of the people who graduated university found it difficult to get a job. The question statement says, after finishing their tertiary education, all people had difficulties in finding employment. So we need to figure out whether the answer is going to be true, false, or not given. Now, in what case will the answer be true? When the question statement is verified by the information in the passage. In what case will the answer be false? When the question statement will be rejected or disproved by the information in the reading passage, and it is not given when you simply have insufficient evidence. So at first glance, you seem to notice a lot of, common denominators, a lot of what you call matching similarities between the passage as well as the question statement. So it says people who graduated university, that is the same thing as tertiary education. After graduating university, after finishing the tertiary education, found it difficult to get a job. There are difficulties in finding employment, which basically means finding jobs, right? Now, so far, it seems to be did to copy the same. However, keep note of this. Over here, it says majority. Majority means 60%, 70%, 90%, for example, the dominant portion, the dominant faction. Whereas over here, it says all. All means 100%, which is clearly not the same as majority. Therefore, on one hand, you have majority, and the other hand, you have all. So clearly, there is a blatant contradiction. There is a rejection that is happening over here. In other words, the information in the passage does not corroborate your question statement. Therefore, in this case, we will say that our answer will be false. All right, so it's not just about noting the keywords, it's also about understanding their meanings and applying that and finding out whether or not there is any sort of resemblance between the two themes or not. Next, I will move to another example, just for a bit of more clarity. Oh, sorry, I wasn't really supposed to show you the answer. So you have the reading passage that says, the charity raises money to pay for education and the daily needs of poor people. The charity raises money to pay for education and the daily needs of poor people. The question statement says, the charity spends more of the money raised on schooling for poor people than on the daily requirements. The charity spends more of the money raised on schooling for poor people than on the daily requirements. Now, in this case, the answer, well, obviously I mentioned it's not given, but why is the answer not given? If you look at the passage, the charity is raising money for 2 purposes. A, paying for education, and B, meeting the daily needs of poor people. Whereas in the question statement, it's giving a formula, a means of weightage of distribution of that charity resources, that the charity is spending more of the money raised on schooling for poor people than on the daily requirements. The reading passage, all it did was mention that the charity was raising money for fulfilling two purposes. Nowhere in the passage is it mentioned that more money is going to go on schooling and less money is going to go on meeting the daily needs of the poor people, right? That is something that is additional. Well, could be true, could be false, but bottom line, we do not have enough information in the reading passage. I repeat, we do not have enough information in the reading passage in order to verify the authenticity of the question statement, in which case we will say that since we do not have enough evidence, therefore the answer will be not given. All right, thank you. Next up, we have example 3. The reading passage says just over 400 million acres of land is being used for agriculture in America. Just over 400 million acres of land is being used for agriculture in America. Question statement, at present, in America, about 400 million acres of land is allocated for agriculture. Okay, now as you see, just over 400 million acres, and then you have about 400 million acres, which means in both cases, they're saying approximately 400 million acres. It's an estimation at best. Over on in the passage, it's saying it's being used for agriculture. In the question statement, it says it is allocated for agriculture. Allocated means to put something aside for a particular use. In this case, it being agriculture. In both cases, it is about the United States of America. So therefore, there's a clear-cut acceptance. In other words, the question statement is being verified, proved, authenticated, or corroborated by the information in the reading passage. Therefore, in this case, our answer will be true. So I hope you fellas are getting a general gist of, identifying information. And obviously, when we will do a passage, a reading extract, you will understand that better. But it's very important for us. Basically, all you need to do is know what the meanings true, false, yes, no, not given stand for. And once you are clear as in what the meanings are, then it will be always easier for you to deduce information from the passage. Once again, I have to repeat this over and over again like a broken record. It's very pertinent for us to have a very thorough command over our vocabulary. We need to be good with the art of paraphrasing because that will help us, extract answers with more precision, with more accuracy, you could say. Next up, if we talk about the 4th example, so the reading passage says, by the second half of the 17th century, coffee had found its way to Europe. By the second half of the 17th century, coffee had found its way to Europe. The question statement says, coffee arrived in Europe after the 17th century. Now in the passage, coffee arrived in Europe in the second half, that is after 1750, somewhere between 1750 and 1799. Whereas in the question statement, it's saying that coffee arrived in Europe after the 17th century. So in other words, you are saying that coffee arrived in Europe in the 18th century, which is wrong because as per the passage, it was introduced by around, you could say 1750. So there is a contradiction in regards to the timelines. Therefore, we say that the question statement, the information in the question statement is being rejected or disproved by the information in the reading passage. Therefore, our answer in this case will be false. All right. So I hope these examples helped you understand a bit about how to do these sort of questions. We'll look at some pro tips for asking questions that are based on writers' views or claims. So first of all, I would say spend time reading and analyzing the question statement. Spend time reading and analyzing the question statement. Number 2, you're not just trying to match keywords, you must also match the meanings. So for example, above, right, where there were a lot of keywords over here: graduate university, tertiary education, difficulties, get a job, finding employment. All these keywords were matching each other, but the meaning was different because here it was about all people, whereas here it was about majority of the people. Therefore, a very important pro tip when it comes to solving these questions, you're not just trying to match keywords, you must also match the meanings. Number 3, IELTS, like I said before, is all about paraphrasing. Upgrade your vocabulary as much as possible. Watch out for common traps, negative words, frequency words. True, false, not given questions, and yes, no, not given questions employ the same technique or strategy. That is, first you look at the question statement, understand that, then you analyze the information in the reading passage, and then you decide whether or not the information is in the passage and which answer to go for, depending on whether it is type 1 or type 2. And another very important pro tip, the answers come in chronological order. If this is the answer for question 1, if this is the answer for question 3, you're having difficulties in locating the answer for question 2, you can be very sure that it will be somewhere, most of the times, between 1 and 3. So it will help you narrow down your target area, help you save your time as well as your resources. Keep your eye on the next question. Remember the meaning of false, no. False or no means the information does not match, okay? Or the information in the passage contradicts the question statement. See, the reason I brought up these points was because I've noticed that this is like a very common mistake that a lot of students generally make. So what some people do is they just look through the question, they just look at the question statement, then they read the passage, and they see that what they've seen in the question statement, that is not mentioned in the passage. Therefore, they decide to mark it false or no. That is wrong. If you have insufficient information, you will always go for the not given option. False or no is applicable only when there is a clear-cut rejection or basically a contradiction between the data that is in the question statement as well as the information in the reading passage. All right. Also, fellas, one more thing. Sometimes we are in a hurry, we disregard the instructions. So the instructions say write true, false, not given. Instead, we go for yes, no, not given. So we start arguing that, you know what, true is the same thing as yes, false is the same thing as no. That is wrong, okay? If you don't follow the instructions, you're going to lose your mark, okay, no matter what the context of your interpretation was. So it's very important for us to focus on what the question is asking us to do, how it is asking us to express our answers. The focus, the emphasis on the way in which you have to provide your answers, on the instructions, it is of paramount significance. Last but not least, write the full word instead of the letter to minimize chances of error. So for example, if the instructions say write true, false, not given, some people write T instead of true. Some people write F instead of false. They write NG instead of not given. Similarly, Y instead of yes, N instead of no, which is fine, which is not incorrect. But sometimes, some people have issues with their handwriting. There's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of vagueness, in the writing style. Sometimes the T, it starts looking like an F, and these examiners, well, they don't really respond well to ambiguous situations. They won't really give you the benefit of the doubt. So try not to give them an excuse to, to rob you of your well-earned and well-deserved marks. So please make sure that you write the full form instead of their, initials. All right. Thank you very much. So that being said, and then now that we've actually gone through some of this teaching material, we'll actually be looking at a sample extract or sample activity in detail. I hope everyone can see the screen well. So IELTS training reading task type 2, identifying information, also known as writer's views or claims. Sample task, read the text below and answer questions 1 to 8. So what is the main heading of this topic? London to Brighton bike ride. Basically, all the information in the passage, it is based on this main heading that is called London to Brighton bike ride. So let's read it out in detail. And if there are any words that we feel are difficult to understand, I'll make sure that I provide you an understanding of their meaning as well. They start. The bike ride starts at Clapham Common Tube Station. Your start time is indicated by the color of your body number in this pack. It is also printed on the address label of the envelope. Please arrive no earlier than 30 minutes before that time. At max, be half an hour earlier, not earlier than that, okay? Next point, we allocate or we reserve an equal number of cyclists for each start time to ensure a steady flow. Please keep to the time you've been given so we can keep to our schedule and avoid delaying other riders and prevent bunching further down the route. At information point, toilets and refreshment stands will be open from very early in the day. Next up, ride carefully. We put together as many facilities as possible to help ensure you have a trouble-free day, where we also rely on you to ride safely and with due consideration for other cyclists and road users. Although many roads are closed to oncoming traffic, this is not always the case, and you should be aware of the possibility that there could be vehicles coming in the opposite direction. Please do not attempt reckless overtaking whilst riding, very important. Remember, it is not a race. Next up, follow all instructions. Every effort is made to ensure that the route is well signed and marshaled. Please obey all directions from police and marshals on the route. If you hear a motorcycle marshal blow his or her whistle 3 times, move left. Next up, wear a helmet. Every year, we're delighted to see more riders wearing protective helmets, but we would like to see every cyclist on the ride wearing one. More than half of reported injuries in cycling accidents are to the head, and a helmet gives the best protection when the head hits the ground. Attracting assistance. If you have an accident, ask a marshal for help. They're in contact with the support/emergency services. To call for help from a motorcycle marshals, give a thumbs down signal. The marshal will do all he or she can to help, providing he or she is not already going to a more serious accident. If a motorcycle marshal slows down to help you, or you just stop for a rest and not need help, please give a thumbs up signal and he or she will carry on. Remember, thumbs down means I need help. Next up, in case of breakdown, refer to your route map and make your way to a mechanic's point. Mechanical assistance is free. When you show your rider identity card, you just pay for the parts. Refreshment stops. Look out for these along the route. Most are organized by voluntary clubs, and their prices give you real value for money. They're also raising money for the local communities and the British Heart Foundation, so please give them your support. Rain or shine, be prepared. In the event of very bad weather, watch out for signs to wet weather stations en route. En route means along the way. Good waterproofs, like a cycle cape, are essential. In other words, they're very important. Our first aid staff can only supply bin liners, and by the time you get one, you may be very wet. Oops. However, the English summer is unpredictable. It may also be hot, so don't forget the sun protection cream as well. If you have to drop out, we will try to pick up your bike for you on the day. Call bike events 01225 310 859 no more than 2 weeks after the ride to range collection. Sorry, we cannot guarantee the service, nor can we accept liability as in responsibility for any loss or damage to your bike. Bike events will hold your bike for 3 months, after which it may be disposed of. You will be charged for all costs incurred or sustained in returning your cycle. All right. Therefore, this is now that we've gone through the information in the passage. Next up, what we will do is we will just look at the questions. Questions 1 to 8. Do the following statements agree with the information given in the text on pages 1 and 2? In boxes 1 to 8 on your answer sheet, write true if the statement agrees with the information, false if the statement contradicts the information, and not given if there's no information on this. See, they've already clarified it for you. Must be an easy going from here onwards. Must be peanuts for you all now. Keep in mind the fact that the answers will also follow chronological order. So, number 1, you should not arrive more than half an hour before your allocated starting time. You should not arrive more than half an hour before your allocated starting time. As you can see over here at the start, first bullet point, please arrive no earlier than 30 minutes before that time. So let's say the event starts at 8 o'clock, 7:30, that's the earliest you can come, not earlier than that. And basically, what is the information in the question statement saying? You should not arrive more than half an hour before your allocated starting time. Therefore, this statement is clearly agreeing with the information in the reading passage. And on the basis of that, we will say that the answer for question 1 will be true. All right. Next up, your rider identity card will be sent to you before the event. Okay. Your rider identity card will be sent to you before the event. Now, let's go through this paragraph. See if we can find something about the rider identity card. Nope, we can't. Nope. First 3 paragraphs, I'm barely getting anything in regards to the rider identity card. Then some roads may have normal traffic flow on them. Okay. If you look over here, okay, it says that although many roads are closed to oncoming traffic, this is not always the case. So although many roads are closed, some roads will be open. See, sometimes you just have to be good at interpreting and you will automatically find the answer in itself. So many roads will be closed, but this is not always the case, which means that some roads will be open to normal traffic, which clearly means that some roads may have normal traffic flow on them. The statement agrees with the information. Therefore, the answer for question 3 will be true. So far, we have noticed 2 things. Number 1, the answers have come in chronological order. Number 2, we haven't been able to find our answer for question 2. Since nothing regarding the rider identity card has been mentioned in the passage, therefore, there is insufficient information regarding the question statement in the reading passage, because of which we will say that the answer will be not given for question 2. And by the way, fellas, one more pro tip. Since all the answers come in chronological order, so this is the answer to question 1, this is the answer to question 3, okay? And if you can find nothing in between that relates to question 2, then clearly there is not enough information, and therefore you can automatically assume that the answer will be not given. It's a life hack. I'll tell you to kind of go about it the long way, better safe than sorry. But sometimes when you're short of time, this technique really helps you. It really helps you indulge in better time management. So next up, number 4, helmets are compulsory for all participants. It's very important for us to know the meaning of compulsory, important, mandatory, as in you cannot participate in the race without wearing a helmet. Okay. Now, I believe if you go above, there was a section over here that was pertaining to the helmets. So, where is it? Where is it? Yeah, wear a helmet. Every year, we are delighted to see, as in we are happy to see more riders wearing protective helmets, but we would like to see. It's saying we would like to see every cyclist on the ride wearing one. It's not saying we must see. We must see is a command. It's an injunction. All right. It's saying we would like to see. So it's a humble request on the part of the agency. I repeat, it's a humble request on the part of the agency to the participants to wear their respective helmets, but it's not a mandatory policy. It's not a command. It's not an order. So therefore, this is false. Over here, it's saying that it's mandatory, whereas over there, it was clearly a friendly request. So there's basically a clear-cut contradiction. So this statement is actually contradicting the information in the passage, because of which we will infer that the answer for question 4 will be false. Number 5, refreshments are free to all participants during the ride. Refreshment stops. Look out for these along the route. Most are organized by voluntary clubs and their prices give you real value for money. What is the meaning of real value for money? You can get these refreshments at very economical prices, at very reasonable prices, because the money that you're going to pay them for the meals, for the refreshments, they're doing charity with it. How, in what way? They are raising money for the local communities, and they're also making respective donations to the British Heart Foundation. So if it's going to be free, how will they do charity out of it, right? So clearly, the refreshments, they are economical, but they're not free. Therefore, this is a clear-cut contradiction, as a result of which we will say that the answer to question 5 will be false. Number 6, if you need a rest, you must get off the road. If you need a rest, you must get off the road. So over here, it says, if you have an accident, ask a marshal. If you need to ask for their encounter, the marshal providing he or she is not going to more serious accident, but you have just stopped for a rest and not need help. Please give a thumb if you carry. Remember, thumbs means I need help. So over here, they're just saying that, sorry, just breeze through it a bit quickly. But in case you need any sort of help, you just give a thumbs down signal. And if you don't, you'll just give a thumbs up and say that you are fit to carry on. But they're not mentioning anything about getting off the road, right? There's in some, I mean, that could be true, that could be false, we don't know, but there's not enough information in the passage to determine as to whether or not, that is the case. So in this case, if you need a rest, you must get off the road. I would probably say that the answer will be not given. There is insufficient information. Number 7, first aid staff can provide cycle capes. First aid staff can provide cycle capes. Now, if you look here at the second page, it says, in the event of very bad weather, watch out for signs to wet weather stations en route. Good waterproofs like a cycle cape are essential. Our first aid staff can only supply bin liners. So there's only one thing that the first aid staff can equip you with, and that is bin liners. Therefore, they are not in a position to provide you cycle capes. As a result of which, the statement that is first aid staff can provide cycle capes, it is clearly a contradiction of the information in the passage, and therefore it will be ruled as false. All right. Number 8, last but not the least, bike events will charge you for the return of your bike. Bike events will charge you for the return of your bike. So we will try to pick up your bike for you in the day, called bike events, blah, 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 no more than 2 weeks. Sorry, we're going to guarantee the service. Below the 3 months, you will be charged. There you go, fellas. The last line, the last 2 lines of this extract, right? They pretty much provide us the answer for question 8. You will be charged for all costs incurred, generated, or sustained or acquired in returning your cycle. Therefore, that is true. The statement agrees with the information in the passage. Bike events will definitely charge you for the return of your bike. Therefore, the answer for this will be true. All right. So I really hope that this helped you understand better. And also, I'm sorry, I'm just going to go back for a second. Also, if you notice one more thing, okay, All these answers, they came in chronological order. All these answers. So always use that pro tip when it comes to saving your time. Some people also requested me to share, a snap of the answers themselves so that they can practice it afterwards, in which case I would be really obliged. So there you can go. Answer for one is true. In the case of two, it is not given. Three is true. Four is false. Five is once again false. Six is not given. Respectively, seven is false. And last but not least, the answer for number eight is true. Okay. So I hope after going through this, all this information, you are in a better position to figure out the art of deciphering and solving and acing, identifying information, which is also called writers' views or claims. And obviously, if you have any questions, if you have any queries in regards to this, I'm all ears. Would love to resolve any questions you have on the topic. Please feel free to pitch it in the comment bar of my YouTube channel. Your feedback would be very, very, very well appreciated by me. On top of that, so now that that has been said and done, we'll just go to the final agenda of the day, obviously the words, the idioms, as well as the spellings. So for today, I will give you 10 spellings, and they are: number one, mistakenly, mistakenly, mistakenly. The second spelling for today is accidentally, accidentally, accidentally. The third spelling is sunglasses, sunglasses. The fourth one is restaurants, restaurants, restaurants. Number five is preparation, preparation. Number six is television, television. Number seven is episodes, episodes. Number eight is teller, stellar. Number nine is succession, succassion. And the 10th one, the final one, is curator, curator. Okay. Please jot these down. I would highly recommend everyone to, get a diary. I mean, we often are in the practice of, jotting all this stuff down on the MS Word, right, on the computer, right? And I would say that, fellas, please try to write it manually yourself, okay? Because when you write things yourself, it cements and improves your understanding of it in the long run. On top of that, it makes you more proficient, and it's a good habit, That's the one thing I don't really endorse about digital media. It kind of makes us lazy. I personally did all my research on paper and these notebooks and these registers, and obviously for the sake of teaching you all, I do upload this stuff on the digital forum. So I'll always say stick to the old school methodology. Make sure you write all of this down on your diaries as much as possible. And if you learn 10 new spellings every day, and if you are to sustain this practice over, let's say, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you can end up being, really, really strong in this arena. Because, and don't just take these spellings, these words, these idioms for, for just improving your, score in these English proficiency tests, right? But rather think of them as a way to, improve your grip over the language, so that in future, wherever you are, they can give you a competitive advantage, be it in your job arena, be it if you're traveling somewhere, be it in school or wherever you are. Okay, so always think of the long-term aspect behind it, because learning never stops and knowing is clearly owning. Okay, knowledge is always going to be felt. So that being said, now that we're done with the 10 spellings, let us move on to our 5 idioms for today. There you go. So I'm just going to zoom it in so that everyone has adequate exposure to the screen. We're going to do 5 idioms for today. The very first idiom is going to be to be ill at ease. Okay, to be ill at ease. So it's an idiom which basically means to be nervous, to be anxious. There's that saying, having butterflies in your tummy sometimes before a major exam, or or a public presentation or a conference. You sometimes get those jittery feelings. So that is an idiom that is called to be ill at ease, which means to be nervous or anxious. If we have to incorporate that idiom in a sentence, it could be, my sister loves performing, but I'm ill at ease on stage. I mean, she is a natural at it. She can do it easily, but I pretty much get nervous and fidgety when I'm on the stage. The second idiom is in a jiffy. In a jiffy, Jiffi. In a jiffy means immediately, instantaneously, in an instant. In an instant. So a sentence could be, just wait a minute, I'll be there in a jiffy. Just wait a minute, I'll be there in a jiffy, right? Number 3, punch up. Punch up means a physical altercation, a street duel of sorts, a physical altercation, a fist fight, a brawl. So you can say the quarrel, the verbal tussle ended in a punch up, in a fight, in a physical fight. So that's the third idiom for us, punch up. Uh, the fourth uh, the fourth idiom for today is a wild goose chase. A wild goose chase. This idiom, a wild goose chase, it basically means the fruitless pursuit of something unattainable. Fruitless means useless, pointless, something that is of absolutely no avail. The fruitless chase of something unattainable, when you aimlessly try to achieve something that simply cannot be achieved, right? So, for example, I just have a yacht with me, right? I have no understanding of the ocean, the wind currents, the cycles, right? How to, drive that yacht or something. What supplies to equip myself, and I'm telling myself, okay, Hami, within 1 year, I will, travel the whole world via sea on that yacht, right? Simple. I mean, that's going to be a wild goose chase, right? Without proper preparation, without proper training, without proper anticipation, it would never be, tenable in the first stage. So a wild goose chase is an idiom that actually means the fruitless pursuit of something unattainable. A sentence could be, they sent me on a wild goose chase to find a copy of a book that hasn't been released yet. So obviously, when the book hadn't been released, right, how could you get a copy out of it, right? So they sent me, so the wild goose chase is once again, pursuing something that simply can't be achieved. They sent me on a wild goose chase to find a copy of a book that hasn't been released yet. Fifth and final idiom is sit on the fence. All right. So, for example, two of your friends are kind of having this, verbal argument over something. For example, which restaurant to go to for dinner, for having dinner, and you're just sitting on the fence. You're like, no, mate, you two just go and fight about it. I'm gonna be a neutral person, just like Switzerland. I'm not gonna have a pony in this fight, and I'm just not gonna take any sort of, decision on this. Okay. So, to sit on the fence basically means to not make a decision, to not take a side. So a sentence could be, you can't sit on the fence any longer. You need to choose who of these two employees we need to fire. I mean, just sitting around is not going to do anything. We need to figure out how to start the lay down factor, which employees to fire and which employees to retain. So to sit on the fence means to not make a decision or to not take a side. So these were our 5 idioms for today, fellas. To be ill at ease, in a jiffy, punch up, a wild goose chase, as well as to sit on the fence. All right, thank you. Now we move on to the final component of today's agenda, which will basically be 5 words with meanings as well as sentences. Without further ado, let us move towards that part, and let me just zoom in the screen a bit. So the very first word for today is going to be accidial, A-C-C-I-D-I-A-L, accidial. Accidial basically means to dial someone's number on phone accidentally or mistakenly. It happens to us a lot of times. Sometimes we're just, rummaging through the phone and we accidentally end up, pressing a button and we just end up calling some random Tom, Dick, or Harry that you weren't, planning on calling in the first place. So it gets a bit awkward at times. So that is the meaning of accidial, to dial someone's number on phone accidentally or mistakenly. A sentence could be, the other day, I accidialed my boss at 5 a.m., which turned out to be quite embarrassing. Well, I'm pretty much sure it wasn't a boss, but still. The other day, I accidialed my boss at 5 a.m., which turned out to be quite embarrassing. The second word for today is airball, A-I-R-B-A-L-L, airball. So airball means to completely miss the basket, rim, or backboard with a shot, okay? At the last moment, you just make a blind Hail Mary shot, right, and it ends up missing its mark. That's called an air ball. So at the last second, he had to shoot an air ball in a hurry, and his team ended up losing the match. At the last second, he had to shoot an air ball in a hurry, and his team ended up losing the match. Okay, so that's the meaning of air ball. Number 3, bargainous. Number 3 is bargainous. B-A-R-G-A-I-N-O-U-S, bargainous. So bargainous basically means something that is cheap or relatively cheap for something that costs less than your expectations. Okay? For example, don't miss the best and most bargainous sunglasses on sale in the Liberty Market. Don't miss the best and most bargainous sunglasses on sale in the Liberty Market. That is bargainous for us. The fourth word for us is barista, B-A-R-I-S-T-A, barista, okay? Some say barista, but I guess a proper pronunciation of that would be barista based on the international format. So barista is basically a person whose job involves preparing and serving different types of coffee. A barista is basically a person whose job involves preparing and serving different types of coffee. For example, his father runs various restaurants in which Nick has taken an active interest, honing his skills. By honing, it means polishing or revamping his skills, tuning his skills. His father runs various restaurants in which Nick has taken an active interest, honing his skills as a barista, waiter, and chef. All right. Next up, number 5. So that's the meaning of the fourth word. Now we move on to the fifth and final word, binge watch. BRNGEWATCH, binge watch. It means to watch something, in rapid succession, right? So, for example, I remember, when I used to watch my favorite show, Breaking Bad, right? Season 1, 2, 3. I literally used to complete them all in one season in 36 hours at max. So watching something in rapid succession, you're not giving yourself a lot of break in between, not pausing a lot, completing something quickly, at a sequence. So binge watch basically means to watch multiple episodes of a television program in rapid succession. A sentence could be, the company announced that in addition to its pre-existing library, it would be curating 2 new playlists for anyone hoping to binge watch some seriously stellar performances. The company announced that in addition to its pre-existing library, it would be curating, or that is creating, 2 new playlists for anyone hoping to binge watch some seriously stellar performances. Stellar means wow, amazing performances, and binge watch means to watch them in rapid succession. Therefore, Accidial, Airball, Bargainous, Barista, as well as binge watch, these are our 5 words for today. All right. So that pretty much sums up the session, fellas. We first of all went to the teaching material. Along with that, we did a sample extract. We found out the answers for identifying information, also known as articles and claims. And then obviously we did the words, idioms, and the spelling. So please stay tuned for my next session. Don't forget to like my channel as well as subscribe. And I'll be, awaiting your positive feedback in the comment section. Thank you very much, and catch you soon. Okay. Cheers, fellas.